Hey Dave, thanks for coming on. Let's first start off since Donald Trump is becoming president today. What does Donald Trump have to do with the wrestling business?
Well, he got involved in some pro wrestling angles for WWE a couple times, and actually had also involvement in early WrestleManias, co-promoting the I think it was the fourth and the fifth WrestleMania in Atlantic City, and he's had ties with the McMahons for years. He's in their Hall of Fame as a celebrity. So yeah, he's been around the wrestling business.
Uh, you say ties to the McMahons. Who are the McMahons for our?
The McMahons run, or Vince McMahon runs WWE, and Linda McMahon, who's his wife, was with WWE until a couple of years ago, and then she left the company to run for Senate in the United States, although she lost in the election twice.
As a Democrat or Republican?
Republican.
So and now she's becoming she's becoming the administrator of the Small Business Administration in the Trump cabinet, right?
Right. Yeah, they're having a hearing for that on the 24th.
How?
But yeah,
how the hell is that possible? How can a wrestling executive become a member of a cabinet in a major country?
He picked her. Donald Trump's of all the people he's picked for certain positions, she's not the worst. I mean, it's
really.
Yeah, he's out of the box. Yeah, he's basically picking executives from major companies, or people who are that's kind of like the people he's picking for his positions, as opposed to people who've been around the political world.
Is she? I mean, do you think she's capable of doing a good job? I mean, she's.
Oh, there's no way there's no way of knowing how she would do until she does it, because there's no track record whatsoever of her. So there's no way of knowing.
What did she do before? I mean, she's been with the WWE.
She was part of the the business side of the WWE for years,
right?
From up until about 6 years ago, I'd say, and then since then she's done some small business stuff herself.
Like what? Do you know?
She got a thing of helping women get executive roles in business, kind of a business around about that.
Okay, so Trump was. You mentioned already WrestleMania, but I think he actually appeared on WrestleMania in 2007, right? He played a major role.
Yeah. Well, he was a huge role. He was the reason they set the all-time pay-per-view record for pro wrestling was his hair against Vince McMahon's hair in the Bobby Lashley Umaga match, and that was, from a mainstream standpoint, the most purchased WrestleMania that there ever was.
How can that be? How can wrestling fans buy a pay-per-view based on Donald Trump appearing?
Well, it was based on the fact that either Donald Trump or Vince McMahon would get his head shaved, and everyone knew it wasn't going to be Donald Trump, so they bought it based on the idea that Vince McMahon was getting his head shaved, which is, in fact, what was the climax of the pay-per-view.
Huh. And it actually worked out for him, right? Like
yeah. I mean, Vince McMahon's a great performer, and had all the great facial expressions when they shaved his head.
Do you consider Trump a great performer from a wrestling?
Not a pro wrestling standpoint. He's not bad. I mean, because he can talk in front of the people, so he's got that, and he's got a lot of presence. But I wouldn't go so far as to say he was a great performer.
Okay. Do you know of the financial ties? McMahon, Trump. Has there been?
Well, they donated millions of dollars to his charity foundation, the Donald Trump Foundation. In fact, they were the biggest contributors of all. They contributed, that was basically his pay for those shows, was them contributing to his foundation, and they contributed millions of dollars.
You reported like $6.5 million to
yep.
a super PAC. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that was different. No.
Okay.
That was later. That was the $6.5 million was the donations that the McMahon family made for him for his presidential campaign this year.
Right.
The stuff to the foundation was done in like 2007, 2008 when he was when he appeared as a character on their television shows.
Okay, but he always appeared as himself, right?
Yeah. It was to be silly to have him play somebody else.
Have you ever met Linda McMahon?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, once.
How was that?
There's really nothing to say. I mean, I don't, no big anything one way or the other.
Does she know who Dave Meltzer is?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Does Vince McMahon know who you are? Of course, but
of course. Vince McMahon's known him for 30 plus years.
Does he talk to you?
Not on a regular basis. Every now and then, every now and then I'll get a phone call from him, but it's not often or anything.
Huh. So, you talked about whenever Trump won the presidency in November. You talked about it on the Wrestling Observer radio. What does it mean for America that someone like Donald Trump can get elected? Actually,
I don't know. It wasn't. I really don't know what it says, other than the other candidate was very flawed, and there was two flawed candidates, and he was the one who he didn't even get the most votes.
Right.
But the way that the system worked, he won the election. So if either side had a different candidate, I think that the other candidate probably would have done a lot better. But both parties presented very flawed candidates, and he kind of won because of that.
So how come WWE hasn't congratulated him on his victory?
Because it's very polarizing. Donald Trump's a very polarizing figure, and the WWE, their audience skews very heavy Hispanic, and Hispanics, for the most part, hate Donald Trump.
Right.
So it wouldn't be smart for them to be praising Donald Trump so much. It would alienate a good part of their audience, and that's not good business.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the business. I grew up with wrestling in the late 90s. That was the major boom period, right?
The late 90s was, I'd say from 97 to 2001 was probably the strongest period of wrestling in the last, maybe since the 50s in the United States.
How many people watched wrestling on a weekly basis?
It's hard to say, but on Monday nights they got as high as 12 million, and very frequently, we're over 10 million. I think it was like 9-10 million for some of that period, and peaking at 12 million.
And how many people are watching it these days?
A little over 3 million.
Is that still considered a success, or?
It's a success. It's a success compared to everything else on television, yes, but it's not. It's not what it was. Not even close.
But WWE is still doing fine, right, as a business?
Yeah. They're a solid business. They've got the way that they're structured and everything like right now. They can't really unless they take some risks that don't pay off, they really can't lose money. Just the way everything's structured, and it's their popularity is pretty settled in the sense that it's not going unless they do something stupid, which they don't do. They're not really going to go down a lot. They may not go up a lot, but where they are right now, they can stay at for a long period of time.
Right. Can you talk about the WWE Network? That has been a major change in the business, right? Because
the streaming service.
Right.
Yeah, it was a risk, and I think that they made some mistakes early on, but those mistakes have been made, and it's successful for what it is. It's not as successful as they expected it to be, but it is successful.
So it's like for people who don't know, it's like a Netflix for WWE wrestling, right?
Somewhat, but there's a lot more live content than I think Netflix has. Really it's based on the live content more than the archive content. But it's got all kinds of footage from the past and original programming and things like that. But the key drivers are the pay-per-views, the big shows every month or twice a month, or and then it's the NXT specials and things like that. The live content is really what drives the network.
So when you usually buy a pay-per-view, it costs like $50, €50. Now the network costs like $10 a month. How do they make money? Like, do they still make the same money compared to the pay-per-view days?
The profit margin's down, but for the B shows, for the smaller shows, they're actually making more with the network. Where they lose is on the real big shows like the WrestleManias. The WrestleManias were far, far more lucrative before the network than they are now. So but overall, they would be from a profit standpoint, they would be down on comparing everything that they've cannibalized with what they have. But it's growing and it's the future. And it's not like I said, it's not unsuccessful. They could have been more successful doing things a little bit differently, but they'll tweak it, and in time they will be where they are more successful with it.
What does success in wrestling depend on?
In just making money is really what it's all about, and they're a profitable company.
So how do they get profitable? I mean, isn't it like doesn't it depend on popular wrestlers or on performers?
Yeah, now it's almost the brand itself as much as popular wrestlers help, of course, but they're at a point where, even if they lost their most popular wrestlers, they could lose their 3 most popular wrestlers right now, and yes, it would hurt them, but they'd still be doing all right.
Huh. So, you've been in the wrestling business for the early '80s, right?
It depends what you consider in the wrestling. I guess you could say early '80s.
You started the newsletter in '86,
'82, but I started the first newsletter I started in '71.
Wow! But how long have you been doing it full time?
As a full time job, since I would say '87.
Wow! So how we have many listeners who listen to this who either don't know wrestling or refuse to watch it. Why should people watch it? Why do you love it?
There's no reason to watch it. If you're entertained by it, you should watch it. And if you're not entertained by it, there's no reason to watch it.
But how can you be entertained by something where you know that the outcome is fixed?
It's just like watching a movie and a television show and almost anything other than live sports.
Right.
Most of television, most of entertainment is scripted. Almost everything you see in entertainment is scripted, other than live sports. And it's got certain elements where it kind of tries to be live sports, but it's entertainment. It's not sports.
Would you say that politics has become more like wrestling, like more and more scripted?
Yes, I think so. I think politics is, it was. I think there's always been some similarities, but I think that in recent years it's gotten far more like wrestling. Yeah.
Like what similarities?
Guys trying to talk and get, instead of fan support, get voter support, say things that will inflame the audience, say things that will move the audience. And, for a politician, the goal is to get people to vote. For a wrestler, the goal is to get people to buy a ticket to see you perform. But there's similarities. Yeah.
So would Donald Trump
and often use contrived storylines to do so?
Would Donald Trump be considered a heel?
He would be heel to some and a babyface to others. It's kind of split down the middle right now.
So how come someone like The Undertaker, who has been around since 1990 or something, is still able to wrestle? That's totally different.
Well, there are guys that have been around. Well, there have been guys that have been around longer than him, and he does a very easy schedule. He may only do 1 or 2 matches a year, so his body can take it. He couldn't go out there and do 150 matches a year at this stage of his career.
Who does 150 matches? It's like every
top guys. I think the top guys are close to 200 around. Actually, I think there might be some guys over 200 matches a year, but right around 200 would be where the top guys are. And then some of the other people are being 100 and 150.
Okay. So who's your favorite wrestler right now?
I don't know that I have a favorite wrestler. AJ Styles is probably the one I would enjoy watching the most, or Kenny Omega.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have a favorite wrestler.
Do you have a favorite storyline?
Not right now. I watch it more from the business standpoint, but I've had favorite storylines that they've done over the years. As far as angles and things that really worked well.
Right.
Vince McMahon and Steve Austin, Freebirds and Von Erichs, things like that. Those storylines were great.
Let's talk about your job. What's the point of doing journalism about wrestling?
The same as doing it about any other entertainment form. Just to watch how everything unfolds, and it's a very intriguing business because it's always changing. As soon as you think it's settled, something new happens and everything changes again. So there's never a dull moment covering pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting out a weekly newsletter consisting of 25,000 words or more every week, right? I mean,
25 to 40,000 words every week. Yeah.
how do you do that?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I just do it.
Uh, what's your daily? I mean, how many hours do you work every day? Do you work every day, or do you have a weekend or something?
I work every day, and aside from half of one day a week, I work constantly on it. Yeah, I constantly work. It's like I may take a break here and there, but pretty much working from when I wake up until I go to sleep. Yeah.
So, but what? I mean, you said you write about the business, and I mean, how many pay-per-view buys and how many people attended the event, but why does it matter? Who cares about that? I mean, the fans.
Evidently, someone does, because if they didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. There's obviously a large audience because that's what I draw from.
What makes your journalism different to like a political reporter or a regular sports reporter?
I've done political reporting. I mean, it's not the same thing at all, but there are similar aspects to it in the sense that with a politician, you kind of analyze his speech and what's true and what's not true. And with wrestling, there's a lot of that where people will say things, and sometimes they're full of it, and sometimes they're making good decisions, sometimes they're making bad decisions. So from a business standpoint and business maneuvering standpoint, that and politics are very similar. From the presentation of the product itself, they're not similar at all. That's analyzing a product, and that's different from covering politics.
Do you cover backstage politics in wrestling?
Yes. Why things happen is a big part of it, actually. Yeah.
So, how, like in WWE, how would you describe what kind of backstage politics is there? Like, who's mad at the boss or something?
Not so much that, but I mean, things happen for a reason, and people maneuver for power and things like that. So that's kind of like what you might be talking about. Okay. Some people are going to get pushed for certain reasons and not pushed for certain reasons, and that's actually really intriguing to the fans as far as like what's going on behind the scenes and what's causing the moves to happen the way they do.
Right. How do you protect your sources?
I don't know. I must have done a pretty good job of it, though, just to last as long as I did. I never talk about who they are. That's for sure.
But I mean, whenever they tell you something, you don't really report everything, right? You just sometimes.
It depends. If it's newsworthy and it's on the record, I'm not going to not report something. If they say off the record, then I try to get it confirmed on the record somewhere else, which I'm pretty good at doing, actually.
Do they call you? Do you call them?
Depends. Every situation's different.
Did the internet change your work, your journalism?
Yeah. Less phone, more emails. Absolutely. Before it was all 24. Before it was always on the phone, and my left ear would be killing me by the end of the day. Now I'm not on the phone nearly as much, but I'm still on the phone a lot.
Did the internet change your business, your Wrestling Observer? I mean,
it made it stronger, but it made it stronger, but it made it different. Yeah,
stronger but different. Like how?
It's changed. There's more. It made my role a lot more analysis, because you can get the news as much before. Whereas before I was pretty much breaking almost all the news. Now there's a lot of people break news. I still break a lot of news, but there's a lot of people who break news. And but now it's the kind of the ability to analyze and see the big picture of everything, which is actually probably my strongest point.
What's the big picture going forward? Like
WWE trying to change the way they do business with localized satellite groups in different parts of the world, and then other companies trying to survive essentially in a changing environment. A lot more following WWE with streaming content, and less emphasis on the live events, more emphasis on the big events.
So WWE wants to become a monopoly, or do the others?
They've always wanted to become a monopoly. For the last 33 years, they've been trying to become a monopoly, and they'll never be a true monopoly, but they're for the last 16 years, they've been pretty much dominant to the point that there's no strong competition. They haven't had strong competition since really, they haven't had strong competition, I would say, since maybe you could say 1999 was the last year. So that's 18 years ago.
Right.
But there's some groups that have gotten popular in the last few years, and that partially because of the internet. And I think that WWE is trying to make sure that they don't get too popular.
Like getting wrestlers from them.
Not so much that. I mean, there is a little bit of that, but it's very little. But just people talk about other groups as being better than WWE, and then they always have. But I think at this point, I think that WWE is trying to make sure that they've got they've got all the good talent. Before there were certain types of people. WWE had a mindset of what main event major league stars had to look like, and they've dropped that completely now. And now they're just out for if they're talented, they want them. They don't want somebody else to have somebody talented just because, the old WWE would say, they're too fat.
So the old WWE always wanted to get like a 6 foot, 7 foot guy who looked great, right?
Yeah, they wanted to always be built around physically impressive looking guys. And what happened in recent years is fans have changed their taste. In the 80s, fans were really all about bodies. You know what I mean? It's like you had a good body, they thought you were a good wrestler. The fans have evolved. I think some of that has to do with UFC and seeing that smaller guys can really fight and stuff like that. So now it's become one of those things where people want to see guys who provide them with good excitement, and that could be any size. So WWE's had to change its philosophy on who they hired. There was a point, and it wasn't even that many years ago, where WWE, for the recruiters, were told, we don't want anyone under 6'2" and under 240 pounds. And now, the vast majority of people they sign are much under 6'2" and much under 240 pounds. And they got guys who are 155 pounds. And sometimes they even, to me, when I see guys 150 pounds in WWE, it's like, what are they doing? But it's like, it's changing fans' taste.
Is Hulk Hogan still around?
He's around. Yeah.
But not on WWE.
He's not on WWE television right now. That's probably going to change in a couple months. But he was when he was caught on a tape saying a lot of racial things, and WWE cut ties with him immediately. Mm-hmm. And I knew when it happened that there would always come a time where they would bring him back, but it would have to be long enough to where the audience has forgiven him, and I think they probably see that that's probably the case right about now. So,
I mean, The Rock, after he left the business, turned out to be one of the major Hollywood stars. Is John Cena going to be the next one?
It's hard to say and to put pressure on somebody to be the next Dwayne Johnson, the number one box office Hollywood star, one of the biggest in the world. I don't know that John will be that big, but I think that John will be. I think John will be successful at whatever he does. Just he's got a certain. He knows what he's doing. He's a smart guy. Knows what he's doing. Comes off really well on television, and he's done well in some acting roles. Not in every acting role, but Dwayne didn't do well in every single acting role either.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as far as he had everyone in that genre is going to have your hits and your misses, and John will have hits and John will have misses as well. I don't know that he'll ever be, the big box office attraction that Dwayne is. I don't think he will, because you can't put that pressure on a guy and say, well, if you don't do this, then you're a failure at it. But I think that he'll do well at whatever he does, and he's getting a lot of work. So obviously the studios think that.
So let's finish with a German question. Has there ever been a major German wrestling star? Yeah. I mean, from different eras. I mean, I only remember Alex Wright in WCW. I mean, as far as like in the United States, I mean, they used to always have the people with German heritage in the 50s, do the Nazi gimmick. What? And there were a lot, the Von Brauners, were like, and there's a bunch of people like that were huge stars in the territorial days. Horst Hoffman was from Germany, who was a medium level star in the United States, and a little bit better than that in Japan, and big in, definitely big in Germany though. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Never heard of them.
Yeah. Well, he was big in the '60s in Germany. He was, Germany was real big as far as pro wrestling when in the '60s and '70s with the tournaments and things like that.
I actually remember that a German goalkeeper who played soccer is now in the development territory.
Yeah. Tim Weiss, right?
Tim Wiese. That's what
you say. Okay.
Tim Wiese.
All right. I don't know how to pronounce him. I only know how to spell him.
Yeah, he's everybody laughs at him over here for not for going to WWE, but just for his public persona. So have you heard of
bodybuilder type?
Yeah. Have you heard of? Is he going to make it or something?
I don't. He's not doing a lot in NXT or anything like that. So I think that he's just being used as an attraction when they come to Germany.
Oh.
I don't think that they have plans of. It just doesn't feel like that they have any ideas of using him as far as like one of their regular touring top guys. It just doesn't seem like he's. I don't know. I never hear about him, so I would say that probably no. Well, I think he's good enough to where he can do tag team matches in Germany and as an attraction and get them publicity. And that's what he's done so far.
Okay, Dave, thanks so much.
Very welcome.
And maybe some other day. Maybe when Linda McMahon gets fired.
Maybe.
Right. Thanks.